It's the Don McKay Morning Show here on RadioOnFire.com. Thank you for joining me, broadcasting from the Radio on Fire studios, Radio on Fire News Network studios here in Baltimore, Maryland. We're in a brand new facility. We've talked about this a little bit, that we are in a brand new facility now. So as we continue to build this thing up, you're going to see a lot of changes going on here at the home of Radio on Fire. So, for the second time this week, the White House has been caught in a lie. Frederica Wilson, representative Democrat, obviously, from Florida. You can tell, I don't even want to say obviously, because the White House goes at Republicans as well, but she can take her another victory lap, as the White House caught in a lie for the second time. Now, twice this week, the White House has accused Frederica Wilson of lying. And each time, the facts have vindicated her version of the events. Facts. Now, most recently, evidence emerged disproving the accusation by the White House Chief of Staff John Kelly that Wilson gloated over securing funds for an FBI building in her district. So let's go back a little bit. John Kelly, general, former Marine guy. I tried to have some sympathy for John Kelly, the former general, because he lost his son in Afghanistan 7 years ago. So I try to give him the benefit of the doubt, even though if you look at it, when Donald Trump was talking about he knew more than his generals, this is one of the guys he's talking about. Donald Trump insults these people, yet they steadily want to work with him. They steadily want to do his bidding. And this week, John Kelly proving that Trump is a liar, catching him in a lie once again. And John Kelly actually proving this lie. So let's go back. Let's talk about the lie. So if you remember earlier this week, there was a big hoopla because a reporter had the nerve to ask Donald Trump, why haven't you talked about the 4 soldiers, U.S. soldiers, that died in Niger? To me, it's a fair question. Why haven't you talked about it? You could talk about the NFL. You could talk about Rosie O'Donnell. You could talk about everything but what you're supposed to be talking about. Now, when it comes to issues that he should be talking about, Donald Trump ain't got nothing to say. So one of these reporters called him out on it. And what did he do? He decided to try to use that as an opportunity to take a shot at President Obama. You want to have a pissing contest with President Obama, President Bush, et cetera, instead of actually answering the question. So Donald Trump did what he usually does, which is put his foot in his mouth. Donald Trump said in response to the reporter, starts talking about how it's difficult to make these phone calls. And I can imagine that it would be difficult to make a phone call and telling somebody that their child died, in the line of duty, in service for this country. I know that that's a difficult thing to do, right? And I've said this earlier. What Trump should have done was commend the troops and say that he's going to be speaking on it soon. There's a lot of things, but getting into this whole thing about, President Obama didn't do this, and I'm the one making all these calls. That's what caused the reporters, Bloomberg and Washington Post and what have you, to start digging in and reaching out to people that lost family members since Trump has been in office. And of course, there were people that he didn't call, and that whole firestorm went about. Now, what happened that was really crazy. So in the wake of that, now he's got to actually call these people. He probably wasn't going to call them. Now he's got to turn around and call the people. So he starts calling the people. And what happens again? He puts his foot in his mouth again. He must love toe jam because he eats it. He eats it and he fucking eats it. Okay. So more toe jam. And here's the thing. He eats his own toe jam, right? It's not like he's eating like, what's his wife's name? Melania's toe jam, right? He ain't eating her. He's eating his own toe jam, right? Now, when he gets on the phone with the people, he doesn't even know how to talk. He can't even act like he's sympathizing with somebody. To me, it seems very simple. Trump has children, and the people that you're calling, you're calling his wife, and she lost a family member. So you, as a father, as a husband, three times, right? Third time's a charm, right? You should be able to understand how this could feel, right? You should know the words to say out your mouth, but you don't. And at the end of the day, he was disrespectful. He said things. Now, I don't think he necessarily intended to be disrespectful. I just think that he's completely tone deaf and just an idiot. And so when you talk to the widow of Army Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, she had she's upset. She's finding out that she's not going to be able to have an open casket. That's how damaged, her husband is. So she's upset, and she is in the midst of family and friends. The House of Representative Frederica Wilson was in proximity in the car. The phone was put on speakerphone. I guess it's probably, who's this calling? It's the president. They put on speakerphone, which was so smart for her to put it on speakerphone because everybody in the car was able to hear President Trump. And President Trump said that he must have known what he signed up for, and but you're still grieving. I mean, it was very dismissive. It was quoted that he did not even remember Army Sergeant LaDavid Johnson's name. That's how haphazard this whole thing was to him. That's how much of a bother from him playing golf and grabbing pussies. That's how much of a bother this was. He couldn't even remember the name of the officer that he's calling. You know what I mean? Write it on a piece of paper. Hold it in your hand. Like, you can have it right there. Like, I have notes. It's right off camera right here. And this is stuff I know, like the call-in number and stuff like that. But it's just here just to keep it fresh in my mind, right? Trump could have had a freaking note. You know what I mean? Just write it, whatever. But he didn't do that, right? He didn't do that. And he's the one that publicized this and politicized it. He's the one that did that when he started talking about President Obama didn't do this and, trying to big up himself, right? Big league, as he likes to say. Stupid. It just sounds retarded. But anyway, that's not politically correct, right? It sounds special. Anyway, so Trump goes on with that. Now, then this thing blows up in his face because thankfully, Frederica Wilson, who she's riding in the car with her constituent, which is the widow of this fallen officer. She's riding in the car. She hears what is said, and she lets it be known what he said and how just, inhumane he was, right? I think that a literal four-legged dog could show more compassion than Trump. You know how if you're sad, you've had a dog before, right? You know, if you're sad, the dog can sense it. It's kind of like, it's kind of rubbing up against you. Even a dog has more empathy. A dog is more human than President Trump. But anyway, we continue. He goes on and tries to discredit Wilson and saying, oh, he didn't say that stuff. She got it all wrong, right? He basically called her a liar. He basically did that. But as I said, the conversation was heard on the phone, And during this supposed to be condolence call, Trump claims that she totally fabricated what he said, and he had proof that his version of the events is what happened and hers was not true. You know, he always about, I got proof, trust me, blah, 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 blah. You ain't got no proof. You ain't got no damn proof. But it was confirmed on Thursday. His aunt, the fallen officer David Johnson, his aunt actually raised him. His mother died when he was young. His aunt looked at him as a son. She actually raised him, and she was also present for the call. She also heard Trump say the things that the representative said he said. She said that it is, yes, it is a true statement. I was in the car. I heard the full conversation. So that's he's caught in another lie. But, you know, he never offered any evidence to contradict what she said. We just supposed to believe me, take my word for it. No, shut up. Nobody believes you. Your wife doesn't believe you. Your kids don't believe you. And I don't believe you. All right. So he continues on. So now they try to shift gears again. But let's keep in mind, he claimed he didn't say any of that stuff and that he had proof. But in remarks at the White House, Chief of Staff John Kelly admits that he's the one who told Trump to say what he said. He told him, and he was listening to the call as well. And I guess this is supposed to be your proof. He proved that you are a liar. He proved that you're a liar. Now, Kelly's son, Chief of Staff Kelly, his son died while serving our country in Afghanistan. And when he started telling his story, he wanted to try to change the narrative and try to get people to empathize with him. And he talked about how and the condition that a body is in when it's brought to this country, and the different packing of the ice and the wrapping in the flag and the friends of the fallen service person and all that kind of stuff. And it was a very, very it was serious. That part, fine. What I disagreed with is that, John Kelly sounded like a parent that's trying to make excuses for their child fucking up, right? I mean, he didn't mean it like that. I try to teach him better, but you go with his intention. I mean, you're talking about an adult, and it's ironic because John Kelly has been on the other side of that phone call. He's been someone who had to get a phone call that his son was killed. He's also sent people to be killed or that eventually died in service. And he's also a member of the White House staff. He's a chief of staff, right? He's supposed to be there to keep things in order, right? But things have been more fucked up since he's been there. But he's supposed to be this big order guy, right? He told President Trump, who didn't even know what to say, the fact that you have to, ask a general, hey, general, did you claim you know more than the generals? What should I say to a person whose son died? Motherfucker, you should already know what to say. You're over 70 years old. You don't know what to say? I mean, come on. So General Kelly and his infinite Chief of Staff Kelly, because you're not a general no more. Chief of Staff Kelly in his infinite wisdom says, well, let me tell you what one of my best friends in the world said to me. This is the problem. Chief of Staff Kelly gave President Trump, who's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, advice on how to speak to a complete stranger by using, in the most difficult conversation she's going to probably ever have in her life with a complete stranger, you're going to use a conversation that you had the same type of conversation with a best friend. It's, the level of comfort that you have with your best friend delivering this is totally different. And the tone is totally different than a complete stranger. And President Trump is a complete stranger to this woman. So anyway, and President Trump fumbles it, fucks it up, drops the ball, everything, steps on it, falls, everything. Anything that you can do wrong, he did it. And John Kelly proved that he was the one that told him to do that. He was listening to the call. And then he switches from being a gold star, father to a Trump lackey with more lies. And, it's ironic that on one hand, I feel sorry for John Kelly, but on the other hand, he's just a piece of crap. Now, he decides to try to make Miss Wilson look bad. And this was a part of the White House attempt to change the narrative and try to paint her as some kind of showboat. So what he decided to do, Chief of Staff Kelly, was allege that Frederica Wilson tried to take credit for securing the funding for an FBI building that happened in her district. So this is, they're digging in the crates. This was a little while back when this happened. But once again, another lie. So they each basically tried to say this was a ceremony. It was nice and a solemn ceremony. And then she wanted to stand up and say, I'm the one who got the money for this, blah, 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 blah. And that's what he tried to say. That's not even what happened there. So they're trying to paint her. We couldn't catch her in the lie, so we're going to try to paint her as a bad person and somebody who's just trying to, be a media whore, right? That's how you try to paint her. But the truth of the matter is that she stood up and she spoke about the fact that the FBI building was. This is under, James Comey. So like I said, we're going back a little bit. She talked about the fact that she helped push the legislation through to name the buildings after two deceased FBI agents. So while Kelly is trying to say she was talking about, I'm the one who got the money for the building, pat on my back, she actually was just trying to let it be known that she was instrumental in getting the buildings named after FBI agents. Once again, that's big. That's big. But it's not a media whore. That's not somebody who's just trying to get attention. So she did not talk about securing the funding, and it's on video. So, these are two black eyes for the White House once again. And I'm going to tell you this is only the beginning, because we don't know why these soldiers were just left out there. Why are we there? This is going to be a big scandal. Remember Benghazi? Kept talking about Benghazi. We're going to be talking about this for a couple of years. And when this whole thing unravels, I'm sure another Trump lie is going to be at the end with him eating toe jam as usual. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at The Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. Radio on Fire broadcasts reach over 276,000 viewers per month. You can advertise your product, service, or event on Radio on Fire by sponsoring any one of our broadcasts, and that can start as low as $50. Visit radioonfire.com/promo for that info. And if you miss any episodes of our shows, you can always go radioonfire.com and click the radio shows link, and you can see any show that you missed. Yours truly, Diamond K. I will see you guys tomorrow.